So the Cambodia Phnom Penh mission, it's now about 20 years old. While I was there, we had our 20-year anniversary celebration, which was really cool. And that same year, Cambodia got its first 2 stakes. And that was a really big step. It was for Cambodia, for them to have stakes and to have those priesthood keys given to that country. During that year, the Vietnamese government accepted the interim representative board for our church to act on behalf of our church in Vietnam, which was a big step forward to helping our church get recognized. Currently in Vietnam, there are missionaries in 2 cities, in Hanoi and in Ho Chi Minh, and we have 3 branches. Missionary work is something kind of new to Vietnam. Back before the Vietnamese War, there were a few missionaries that were able to enter southern Vietnam, and they started missionary work there, and they had a growing branch, and they even had a building. But after the war, the church left Vietnam, and many of the members also left Vietnam. And it wasn't until about 10 years ago that the church started again in Vietnam, and at first there were no missionaries. It was just a few members meeting together. But after a while, a few locals, a few Vietnamese people served as missionaries and helped bring more people into the church. About a year or so before I started to serve a mission, they started to allow people from America to come in to do missionary work. So it's kind of a newer thing. Missionary work in Vietnam is a little bit different. It's a non-proselyting work. We don't call ourselves missionaries or branch builders. We don't wear our name tags. When we're out on the streets and talking to people, we can't bring up the gospel, or we can't teach out on the streets. And there's a lot of small rules that we were given that came from meetings that our church had with government officials. Like, we weren't supposed to draw attention to ourselves, and we're not supposed to give prayers in public, and other things like that. But what we do is we work really closely with the members. The members understand what the challenges are to missionary work, and they're really ready to participate and help bring people to Christ. It's really cool. So most Vietnamese people are, they don't have a religion at all. And then after the group of people who don't have a religion comes the Buddhists, and then there's several local Vietnamese religions that Vietnamese people follow. There are also several branches of Christianity in Vietnam. But most people whom I had the opportunity to teach or work with, they usually came from backgrounds where they didn't have any religious beliefs or upbringing. Most people would worship their ancestors, but that was about as far as they had ever experienced in any religious setting. So it was really, really quite amazing when we had the chance to work with people and to teach them about Christ, and to let them know why we believe in things that we can't see, or how Christ can really help them. Our usual branch attendance, in the branches I served in, we would have around 60 to 80 people come each week. There is one branch in Ho Chi Minh that usually gets well over 100 people coming each week. So a day in the life of a missionary in Vietnam, let's choose a Wednesday, because Wednesdays are the busiest. We would usually wake up on 6:30, and we would get ready. We would get in our 3 hours of study, and then we'd go out. Since it's a Wednesday, we'll usually eat lunch and then take an hour to prepare for our English class that night. We're encouraged to prepare for at least 1 hour for every English class we teach. And sometimes we'll teach 1 English class a week, sometimes we'll teach more. It depends on the area. But so after we've prepared for English class and we've thought of, games to play and how we're going to teach vocabulary, what ways can we help our students really learn English, then we can either, if we don't have any appointments, we could go out to the parks or go to more crowded places and try and start conversations with people. And our goal with starting conversations with people isn't to share the gospel immediately, because that's not allowed. We're trying to follow the laws of the land. But we're trying to brighten people's days. We're seeing if we can give them any service, if we can help them push their cart, if we can do anything to brighten their day. And along with that, we'll see if they're interested in our English classes. We let them know that we'll be teaching a free English class that night at our church, and that they're welcome to come. And usually that the people are really open to that, because English is something that's really useful to Vietnamese people in finding jobs and doing well in school. So after that, usually we'll have some appointments, whether it be with investigators or with recent converts or members, less active members. And most of our appointments will be at the church, because in the past, we weren't allowed to teach at investigators' homes. That has recently changed, and now we are, as long as we have their permission. But we would teach at the church, and we would have lessons with members, and a lot of the younger members would like to hang around the church. It was kind of a cool gathering place for them, where they could relate to people their age about what it's like being Christian in this non-religious country. And they would gather there, and most of them would be very ready to help us teach, and they were preparing for their own missionary service. After our appointments, we would have our English classes, which would be really high energy, and we'd try and help everyone have fun and learn something new. Then after English class, we would have a small break, and then invite everyone to stick around for a short gospel lesson. And during the gospel lesson, we would give them opportunities to continue practicing their English and share with them simple doctrines to help introduce them to our church and the reasons why we really want to share these things with them. And that would be what we would do on a Wednesday. So I served from 2013 to 2015. I recently ended this last January. But I started in Hanoi, and I was there for 2 transfers. Then I went down to Ho Chi Minh, and I was there for 5 transfers. Then I returned to my first area in Hanoi, and I was there for another 3. Then I came back down to Ho Chi Minh City for another 2 transfers. Then I went over to Cambodia, and I was there for 2 transfers, and then I finished in Hanoi. I spent the rest of my time there.